So, hello and welcome to the Heart and Soul podcast. Today we have the just the most biggest honor. I don't even know how to say it. I'm getting like girl giddy to be interviewing and speaking with one of my dear and closest friends, Sarah Seidelmann. I met Sarah, was it 2019? I was like going through this journey of, I think we had met before that, but like when I started to actually get to know you as like the fabulous fucking person that you are, I was like, how do you do spiritual work in this town we live in? Oh, I know somebody who does it. Her name's Sarah. I'm going to find her and I'm going to ask her to help me. And you helped me through some of the darkest times of my life and have helped me throughout some more of the darkest times of my life. And you're just like such a special person. You help so many people. You are an author. I don't even think there's something you can't do.
Welcome to Heart and Soul, the podcast where we empower and inspire women to lead their best lives, harnessing the power of their hearts and souls. We are Mariah
and Monique,
your hosts and guides on this journey of self-discovery and personal growth.
In each episode, we will dive deep into topics that matter most to you, from self-love and confidence to career development, relationships, and everything in between. We believe that every woman has a unique strength and inner wisdom waiting to be unleashed.
Join us as we cover insightful heart and soul-centered topics and interview incredible women who've overcome challenges, chased their dreams, and found their true purpose. Through all of this, you will discover practical tips, strategies, and real-life stories to help you navigate life's twists and turns.
For whatever season of life you're in, this podcast is your safe space to explore, learn, grow, and possibly even laugh and cry with us. So grab your headphones, maybe your favorite drink, and we'll embark on this transformative journey together.
With heart, I'm Mariah.
And with soul, I'm Monique.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if she tries it, she's going to be good at it.
Thanks for dinner. That's one thing.
I'm pretty sure you're just
If you
amazing.
Decided to excel in that, you'd figure it out too.
Good point, Mariah.
Yes. So that said, I'm really excited that you're here so we can talk about you and how fantastic you are and why you're kind of like in our girl gang. Because we have a girl gang now.
Officially, you're in the gang now.
I'm so happy to be a part of that girl gang.
This is your induction into the girl gang. So anyways, I just wanted to share how I met you and how impactful you are in my life. You're very impactful in my life. You mean a lot to me.
Thank you so much.
And I realized in hearing your story, I met you before Monique met you.
Well,
and that was
yes. Okay,
like
you're probably
back
right.
in, I think it was like maybe 2018, 2019 maybe, at a Galentine's Day event.
Oh,
And it was in the Italian restaurant.
Va Bene.
Va Bene, the upstairs. And it was just like a small group of like 20 business women or, just kind of like community leaders. And I just remember I heard your voice and you were at the other end of the table and I was like, who is this amazing human? Like you just
Like,
have a sense about someone.
yes.
It's like, that's how I felt about Monique when she walked in the room at our
Yes.
first
We both,
mastermind. And I
yes.
was like,
Who are
need to know
you?
more.
Yes.
And I got a chance to chat with you that day just briefly and heard a little bit about your story. And I'm like, oh, one to watch right here. I followed you on Instagram. I need to know what's going on here. And then just started consuming fangirling from the background of consuming your content. Like Instagram and she's writing a book and she's doing this and buying the books, reading the books, gifting the books. And then I meet Monique and our journeys kind of coincide.
Mm-hmm.
And then I find out she's working with you and your friends and I'm like,
trifecta.
This is amazing. And so to think that has all manifested today, that we are recording a podcast with you as a guest, like, oh my God.
I know when you fangirl and you get to actually be with someone, you're just like,
I know.
I
And
get
you're
to do all
probably
of
like, okay, ladies, take it down a notch. Simmer down. But we want to get into actually, Sarah, why we are fangirling. And we want to hear about your story because I know it's a just beautifully intricate story. So I know Monique's kind of teed up some questions as well, but we want to share why we think that you're just the bee's knees and how other people get to experience that too.
Thank you so much. You guys are so kind. Can I come back
Well, you're in the gang now. So.
Yeah. So we would like you to just tell us a little bit about your story, like how
Sure.
you ended up where you are. You know, you don't have to go into huge detail, or you can, please do, because you don't have necessarily the traditional path as I'm going to be, you know, an artist this way, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, how do you get into the story? Well, I remember, I think it was, when did the movie The Secret come out? Does anybody remember?
Oh my gosh, like the 90s?
don't know what year that was,
It was
but
in the
yeah.
Okay.
90s,
In the
I think.
90s,
Well, I
yes.
don't know how I ended up watching. My husband and I ended up watching that, and we were at the time we were living in this very big fancy house that we had just remodeled to the kitchen to the tune of like $300,000, like in a ridiculous amount of money
Yes.
at that time. Maybe that's average now. I don't know, but anyway. I remember watching that movie and just being like, whoa, is that true? Like, I mean, it was a lot of bogus stuff like, well, if you think about Mercedes, you'll be able to drive a Mercedes. And like some of it was a little funny, but like at the same time, we're like, are we consciously creating our reality? Anyway, as soon as we had remodeled this kitchen thinking, I think we'd lived these lives of delayed gratification. So for years, you know, like every pizza we got, we're like, oh, it's student loan money. Like, you know, we should, you know, be really careful. And so when we finally got jobs, we went crazy. Like we bought this big house and then we remodeled it and did all this stuff and thought, well, that's what's going to make us really happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then come to realize, well, that it was beautiful and it was amazing. And I love the process of doing it. But at the end of the day, I was still living this life that was feeling less and less authentic to me. So I was a pathologist working in a hospital, a physician basically, who most people probably don't know much about pathologists, but we basically hunt disease. We sit and look at a microscope all day long. So any biopsy you've ever had or relatives had, we're usually looking at those under the microscope to decide, is it malignant? Is it a tumor? Is it benign? Is it some kind of an infection? What's going on? And I loved that work for a long, long time. But I found myself starting to get more curious about like what makes people well. I was sitting in this breast cancer conference. I was in charge of like presenting the newly diagnosed cases and kind of delineating the tumors and what was going on with them. And I remember we would do this every week, and oftentimes these conferences were packed, they were super busy, and they were over lunchtime, and everybody tried to get there. And anyway, I remember every week somebody would raise, or a couple times a month it would happen, one of the social workers would raise their hand and say something like, you know, this patient has an abusive partner who refuses to drive her or let her use the vehicle to come for chemotherapy or something like this.
Wow.
God.
And you're
And
like,
I'd think,
what?
oh my gosh.
God.
And then I'd sit there and I'd wonder, like, what if we could have, I'd fantasize, like, what if we could have identified that woman like 10 years previous or 20 years and like circle the wagons around her and make sure she's surrounded with love and support and everything. Like, would she still have cancer? I mean, it just really, I wondered. And of course, you can't really do a double blind study. There's no scientific, but I started to wonder, like, what makes people well? What makes people healthy? And
Yeah, I suppose because you'd been working with disease, you're like,
yeah.
how do we back the bus and get to before this happens, right? Is
Yeah.
where your mind probably was at.
And so much of the focus of traditional allopathic medicine is focused on, like, when you go to the doctor, they're like, have you lost 10 pounds or gained 10 pounds unintentionally? Do you have blood in your urine? Do you have pain? Where, you know, there are all these questions directed at looking for disease, and that's mostly our model. And I think we're trying to shift that. But anyway, I finally got so feeling less and less engaged with work. I decided, okay, it's not like you can be sort of half interested in pathology, right? You want your pathologist to be 1000% fascinated with every slide they look at,
Pay
right?
attention, please.
And I was like, okay, I got to do something. And so what I did is, well, first I hired a life coach.
Okay.
And back then, this was probably like 16 years ago or something, like in Duluth, Minnesota, nobody was talking about getting a life coach.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there might have been one here, but I had never heard of one. So I found this nice lady at her website was literally, and she's so great, mylifecoach.com.
Oh, yeah.
But her name was Michelle. She was fantastic. And she just listed to me like, talk about how like work was not floating my boat.
Mm-hmm.
And also at the same time, I had 4 kids. Under the age of, I'm trying to think when this all started. Like maybe they were all under the age of like 11 when this started. And I was just like, so I was overwhelmed with that. And then working full time and just all this. And my husband's a physician too. So he was working, and I think it was burning the candle at all ends and feeling disconnected. And so anyway, finally, eventually with Michelle's encouragement and my own exploration, I decided to take a sabbatical from work. And this took some time, right? Because we had this
Yes.
huge mortgage
Yes.
and this massive house,
Oh,
and we
and
had
4 kids.
and 4 kids. So we had to slowly, went more and more part-time. And this is what I always recommend to people. If you're feeling this way, like do it incrementally, because it's tough to just walk away from a job if that's paying all your bills or a lot of your bills. And then took this sabbatical, and on that sabbatical that summer, which I thought was going to be, by the way, so great. I was so pumped because like all these years that all these stay-at-home moms had been so lovely to my kids, like, oh, don't worry, we can take them to the party after school. We'll help and all that. I always wanted to like be that mom who could do all those things and never could. And I thought, I'll be so good at this. This will be great, you know? And that summer was so hard because, summer is just hard in general. But anyway, with kids and like all the things that they want to do and everybody's wild. And, But anyway, during that time, I started like walking in the woods, and I would walk for like hours when the kids were doing other things or I had a babysitter or whatever. And I just started feeling so much better when I was out in the woods, and I couldn't really put a finger on it, but I kind of I want to say I was kind of ecstatic. Like I remember sitting in the driveway, and my neighbor was like getting her garbage can down to the thing, and I was like, hey, it's a great day, isn't it? And she was looking at me kind of like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm like, no, look at the sky. You know, like I was like, compared to like my old self who was exhausted and like burned out and so drained and like, and also couldn't be myself at work, which is something I identified later. Like I was trying to play this role of like, we can go into that more, but anyway, being out in the woods. And then I remember a couple times some strange things happened. Like one day I was sitting at this marsh. I had read a book saying like you should go to places that you're drawn to, and for whatever reason and sit there and just rest. And so I went to this place, and there was this like marsh, and I was just sitting there kind of like watching the cattails blow back and forth, and it was just so beautiful. And then all of a sudden I was like, so weird. It felt like the cattails were blowing for me. They were blowing, and I was thinking, are you, what? Like, is this something's weird is happening here? And then I just thought, okay. And for a while I just sat there and was like, I thought either A, I'm crazy, and there's plenty of that in my family. Like we have bipolar and like, you know, all kinds of stuff in our family. And I'm just like, well, that's a possibility. Or the other possibility is that there's this other aspect to the universe or to reality that I have never really understood or been aware, connected to. And so eventually, and then I stumbled into this book that really introduced to me this idea that the wild animals that cross your path could have some message for you. And I was like, that sounds crazy. But then I was so lost and so confused. Honestly, I was like, if you got an idea for me, I am so willing. I'm down to try it.
Right. 100%.
And desperation. Desperation. Exactly. Like in the foxholes, it's like, I'll try anything. What do you want me to do? And I started to play with this idea. So just noticing like, what were the animals crossing my path? Sometimes I would look it up in a book. Sometimes I would just ask myself, like, what is the animal trying to show me with its behavior? Like one time, there was this one day I was like, I got this idea, like I want to write a book, and it kind of came out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to write a book. Like, I don't know. So then I went on a walk, and I was like, how do I write a book? And then I was looking for a beastie to maybe show me something, because I had already had some really good insights from that. And that day I just saw this ant crossing the sidewalk with like this, you know how ants carry giant chunks of stuff?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Big old crumbs.
Exactly. He was doing that, and I was just like, huh. And then I went home, and I was like, okay, if that ant was trying to show me something, what would it be? And I was like, well, I guess, you know, ants make these massive castles out of sand, and the thing is they don't do it by themselves, and they don't do it all at once. They do it kind of one grain of sand. It must take months, years, I don't know, to build a giant thing. And so then I just thought, okay, well, what would it be like for me today to like take a chunk of sand and like move it into the pile, so to speak? And so I just opened a file that day, and like I wrote on there like Sarah's book. You know, that was kind of my little tiny step towards doing something. And then eventually, like step by step, I fell more in love with the animals and their messages, and eventually learned that there's this whole tradition, this indigenous tradition, that's all over the globe. But I'm not an indigenous person, so I was like, well, is this okay for me to explore?
Oh, sure.
I wasn't raised, you know, by a mother or a grandmother. I mean, I suppose we all have indigenous roots, but and so eventually I sought out teachers that had traditional backgrounds, as well as other teachers as well. And began to learn about this path of shamanism, which is just, something that I just fell in love with, which is really not a religion, but more of a way of looking at the world and working with the world. And the idea is that, you know, everything here is alive and everything here has its place and belongs here. And everything, is like, can inform you. And so, and there's sort of this respect that goes on with the earth and with each other. And I just was like, this is what I've been missing, you know? And there's so many stories from like how I ended up like in medicine. When I was in med school, I ended up choosing pathology, which really doesn't involve having patients, right? We're just talking with other doctors all day. And a lot of people are like, you're such a people person. Why didn't you go into like peds or OB or, you know, whatever specialty? And I was like, well, what happened to me is I saw one of my patients who I saw with Dean Fox, who's another physician in Duluth now. He was my G2 in medicine at Abbott Northwestern Hospital back in the day. And we had this beautiful patient who was younger, and she had gotten a bone marrow transplant for breast cancer, which back then was sort of an experimental treatment protocol. Sure. And years later, we learned that was actually killing more people than it was saving.
Wow. Oh, goodness.
But we were there when it was all going down. Yeah. And this person who was young, she was like 27, I remember visiting her every day, and her platelets were extremely low. And the platelets are the part of the blood that helps it to clot. And so when your platelets are really, really low, you're at risk of bleeding to death, you know, just spontaneously. Sure. And we kept giving her transfusions of platelets, but it was not doing the trick for a lot of reasons. And I remember being really haunted every night. I would drive home and think, we shouldn't be talking to her about the platelets. We should be talking to her about the fact that, you know, she could die. Like, and there was nobody around. And I didn't ever ask, like, is a chaplain coming? Like, her family was never there. She had 3 little kids and was just newly divorced. And I remember just thinking, like, is anybody talking about her to this? I felt like we weren't helping. We weren't being helpful in the way that maybe she needed help.
Just like a science experiment versus a person.
Yeah. It felt very like, like your platelets are low and we're hoping to get them better. We'll see you tomorrow. And which of course is the job, right? That's very important work. But anyway, and then one day we were in the stairwell racing to go see another patient, and Dean's pager went off, and it was the floor calling to say that this woman had died.
Oh. Heartbreaking.
And it was so heartbreaking. We both sat down in the stairwell and cried, which was kind of beautiful and wonderful, because all the other rotations I was on, I mean, the most horrible things happened and nobody stopped to cry. Nobody stopped to talk about anything. We did not process. And I remember just being like, oh, you know, and I'm so grateful for people like Dean, and there's so many physicians like that who are like tuned into their feelings and things like that. But there's just a lot of things that happen. So anyway, I knew there was something missing in medicine the way I wanted to deliver it. Yep. And I didn't know what that was. I thought maybe I just need a lot of therapy. Like, I don't know how to help people, you know? So I ended up just choosing pathology because it was really fun and it was inspiring, and I knew I won't have to talk with people the way, because I don't know how to do that. And so really those early experiences, like later, that I think now the work that I do now, I think is address the soul. And that I think is the piece that was missing way back then. You know, when I was 26 years old, I had no idea what it was missing, but that's what I do now.
You're a pathologist of the soul now.
Yeah.
Figuring it out and understanding all these components and what causes and goes into it.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the
destiny.
Yeah, that seemed like exactly. And a lot of people ask, well, did you know, does it feel like a waste of time that you left medicine? But it doesn't. I feel like all that was preparing me for now. And it's really delightful now, because a lot of people do come to me because they're like, well, I don't really believe in this stuff like spirits and miracles and things like that, but you're a doctor, and so if you believe in this, like maybe I can just for a moment suspend my disbelief and try this. And so that's been kind of a nice thing, I think.
It lends yourself a certain credibility.
Yes.
I remember the first thing I said, tell me about you. And you were like, well, I am a doctor turned shamanic healer. And I was like, this is a great story. Tell me more. You know, I just, those two things say to you right away, like, there's a lot here. There's depth here. I want to know how this all happened. And you share about it in your book so beautifully.
Yes.
Because you did, tell me like the order of the books too and what that looked like. I'm just excited to kind of share even how more people can get in on you. So
the first book is actually out of print now, but that was like a very slim volume, but it was just really me introducing people to the idea of the animals and how they could help you, because I was like so excited, like, if this can help me, like, and I
Yes.
knew how it started to help other people. And we had a podcast when podcasts weren't really a thing. I did like 100, no, we didn't know. It was like 40 episodes with different animal every
Oh,
week.
interesting.
I
We gotta
didn't know
find
this. Is
this.
there
And it
an
was-
archive somewhere we
There
can listen
is,
to?
and there was a
Ah.
call-in focus then that was like, and I don't even know how people found the number. Honest to God, we were like nobody, but people would
call-in?
call
They
in.
called with an
They would-
animal?
They would
That's
call in and
amazing.
share their animal stories of how these
That's so
beasties had come
cool.
in their dreams, in their real life. It was amazing, and a lot of those stories are collected in the Book of Beasties. I share in there.
That
But
book
that-
is amazing. It's out of print.
Not
the
that
Beasties
one.
Oh,
isn't.
okay.
The
okay,
original first book, which was called What the Walrus Knows.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
I
Yeah.
remember this.
But all of that goodness, or most of that goodness, is now in the newer book called The Book of Beasties. That
Okay.
sounds true.
I love
put
it's
out.
such a cool book.
No, I can't even
Yes.
tell you about how this book has affected my life.
Yes.
I can't. I'm like listening to you talk, and I'm like, and then there was the day that Monique and I saw the swans, and then there was the day
Uh-huh.
that this happened and that happened, and
Yes.
so many different animals. And I am such a proponent of this book. People now bring me like stories of their beasties, and then I've
That's so
gifted them that
fun.
book.
Mm-hmm.
It's profound. It's so
Mhm.
profound.
It was such a magical period when I started on that. And then I
Can't
I
imagine.
was like so shy about it. I remember posting on Facebook one night, I'm kind of interested in animal messages. And like, I was so horrified. This is back in like I don't even remember. It must have been 2000. I don't even know. 9. And that night, you guys, like, I think 128 people commented on the thing. And that was
Whoa.
when there weren't that many people on Facebook.
Wow.
And that's when I went, well, I don't know what this is, but I
Yes,
am
there's
not
something
alone
here.
in this. People are very interested in this. So I started telling my friends who are, cardiologists, lawyers who run power companies. These
Yeah.
are like powerful, smart, brilliant women. And I was like, hey guys, I got this thing. Like, I don't want to share with you. I was feeling really awkward. Like, what will people think? And they were just like, dude. And that weekend, I remember one of the friends was like, she's like, well, I think I might be an owl. And I was like, well, sometimes you share characteristics with these animals. Let me just start to read to you. And I started reading, and I was like, owls do this. And then they have this way they triangulate their ultrasound things so they can find things in the dark. And usually, typically, like owls have one ear that's positioned lower than the other ear, and that's how they do it. And all of a sudden, she just like lifted up her hair, and one of her ears was
No,
like an inch lower. And we're just all like, whoa.
Oh my God. I just like,
That just happened.
And it was just thing after thing like that, just in the most profound stories, and we'd all just be crying, and like, you can't explain it, you can't understand it, but it's like the grace of the universe that
Yes.
comes through the animals, and it's so amazing.
the minute you realize it and tap into it through
Yeah.
things such as meeting you or hearing you or reading the book or hearing about it, it immediately starts happening.
It does.
It's unbelievable. And then it becomes a regular visitor.
Yeah.
Sometimes the same animal, sometimes a different animal.
They're just like messengers.
and I'm
yes.
grabbing for the book.
Yes.
We actually were leading a mastermind retreat. We were up at Larsmont Cottages. We had a
My
group
favorite
around the
place.
table.
I know.
And we were talking, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I kept getting distracted. A couple of us kept getting distracted because there was this bird
Oh, yes, that's right.
pecking in the grass.
Yes.
And it was right outside the sliding glass door. And I was like, what is going on with this bird? And to the point that we stopped the session because I was like, there's like something actually going on.
The bird's
that
trying
bird
to
is
tell
trying
us something.
us.
Yes.
And Monique goes, I have the Beastie book in my car. So she ran out, she grabs this book, we turned to the page, and it was woodpecker, I think, because it was in the family. I mean, we were all like trying to figure out what the bird, and reads it, and the whole room was like, just dropped.
This is
to
the thing. It was the
It was
thing.
unbelievable
Yes.
because the point that came into the conversation we were having, I think we were talking about burnout,
Oh, yes.
was so profound. And there were people in that room that would have never paid attention to a beastie.
right.
And today they text me things about it. Like, guess what I
Aw.
saw? Because they were immediately, they
Yes.
got it. It was so profound.
Yes.
I mean,
So
again,
neat.
that's like only one of many, many, many stories. But
Yeah, and the cool thing about that practice is it really gets you to pay attention, because you start paying attention, you're like, wait, what? Like everything could matter, like everything that's happening, not just, you start to begin to expand that to like, well, not just the animals, but like you start to notice little things like a person's eye is a little bit wet in the corner. What did I just say that, somehow now they're emotional
Yeah,
or
awareness.
it just, and that's really what shamanic practice is all about. pure awareness. And when you're purely aware of what's going on, then you're in a more empowered position in life. You know, you can do the things you came here to do. When you're paying attention, it helps a lot.
Yes.
But it is magical. And I never get tired of hearing the stories. It's just incredible. And then you can do drumming. When you drum, that's a whole nother thing where you can really connect to this whole other realm of just like the most magical things. And it's just profound. And again, it's for everybody. So like if anybody's listening to this and they're like, yeah, I want to know, one of the big things that happened to me when I was on that sabbatical is I went on my first shamanic journey. And a shamanic journey is just where you listen to a particular drum beat and which alters your consciousness, which sounds kind of freaky and scary, but really
it's
it's
just
like
a drum.
It's just being in a deep meditation.
Yes.
And drumming has been around since the dawn of time, you know, and it's very safe and wonderful. And I went on this meditation, this journey, and I met this mother bear. And I talk about that in my books. Some people don't like to disclose the identity of their spirit animal because, but I do, and have asked permission from them, and it's okay with them. But anyway, she was just so loving. And so like, I had a very loving family and good, you know, I've always had people who love me and care about me, but it was just this love, like I could do no wrong, like really do no wrong, you know? And that really was profound. And so I've made it a point to like go around teaching people how to do that and inviting people to do that, because once you forge a connection like that, that's a being that you can go visit anytime you need a little support or help or you have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
And anyway,
That was one of the things that you taught me through our work together, was how to journey, and still to this day use it. And it brings me a sense of comfort that nothing else really can. I'll just go there and be in a bad spot and it just comforts me. I'll go there and be in a good spot, and I can sometimes get answers. I can sometimes get questions. But shamanic journeying it's thebomb.com.
And you took to it so well. Like you were such an A++ student.
Aww.
And it was just like so exciting. Cause like when people really get into it, and it's not for everybody, right? Like,
True.
but when people get into it, it's so wonderful because you now have this like unbelievable resource. Like they say the spirits know everything that ever has happened and that everything that ever will happen. And they just have your best interests at heart.
Yes.
And they can teach you methodologies. They can help you write a book. They can help you with your energy. They can give you, like, right now we have a person in our family who's in hospice. So I've been journeying pretty frequently, just asking, you know, what can we do to support her? What can we do to help? And that's just been really profound and beautiful. And so, yeah, it's just an awesome thing. And so anybody who's listening, you could go to my website and you can just get access to a guided shamanic journey if you join my mailing list. So you could meet a beastie that could help you.
I've never done the journey.
Oh, Mariah.
You need to do it,
I'm
Mariah.
excited for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the next level of just like starting to have awareness of the beast showing up. What does that mean? They just happen to be there. But the actual connection to one that shows up for you.
Yes.
And is your direct
Yes. Your core beastie.
connection to the other world. Like, that does sound very intriguing to me.
It's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of well, in shamanic traditions, basically they're frequently called or referred to as like a power animal. And the reason that is because they are able to share, my teacher used to say, they shared the love and compassion of the universe with us. They're able to do that. And when you can have that kind of love and compassion, like power you up, it's like there's really nothing you can't do. And it's just such a delight. And it's so wonderful because they have funny ways of, you know, they're just usually perfect for you. Like if you need somebody stern, they'll give you stern. If you need somebody funny, they'll do that. Just there's innumerable tricks up their sleeves, and it is a wonderful world. The spirit world is I find very humorous, and just there's a lot of double entendre and puns, and they like to have a good time. So while meanwhile lifting us up, and like Monique said, when I journey, I'm like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? What am I supposed to do? And then they'll just be like, just relax, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
Right. I can
Like
actually
I don't have to
here.
work so hard, or I
Yes,
don't have
yes.
to whatever it is. I'm trying to lift the world up by my own two hands. It's like, no, girl, you can stand down.
Stand
Stand
down.
down. We
I love
got
that.
this.
Yes.
We can handle it. Or, yeah.
Well, and
so-
your book has exactly that just comfort and humor and wittiness and like so easily digestible, doesn't take itself too seriously. And I liked a combination of the Beastie book that I go to specifically look up an animal and kind of get in touch with it. But I cannot say enough about the daily practice book.
So how
it's
good
like,
are you willing to let it get?
how
book?
even just hear that again.
How good
are
Yes.
you
I'm
willing to let it get?
Uh-huh.
And it's a daily, starts with, January 1 and then goes 365 days. And every single day there's just this passage. And the the very first year I was like every single day I read it. Then I would the second year through, I would more pick it up like once a week, but then I would read that whole week. But I still, 3 years later, I still pick that book up all the time. And every time I open the page, I'm like, oh my God, of course. This is the
It's
day.
like so perfect.
It's this today.
Yes.
And then I remember it. And there's the Beastie component and just like life lessons and advice. And like, unlike any other of these like 365 days a year, like that one, I've given it to everyone I know because I'm like, you need this.
Thank you so
You need this.
Mariah's like your personal
I am.
bookseller.
I'm just sending them out. But I've never attached to something like I have to that. And I'm like so genuinely like sharing that because just like your perfect tone of serious, interesting, joyful, funny, it's all right there on every page.
And I tried to be like confessional and vulnerable. And I think though what was fun about that book is that one of the messages from Alice, and Alice is my elephant, who's my other spirit animal, who's the second beastie that I met in the spirit worlds, who was not like, the mother bear was more serious. Alice was just hilarious. She's like, where you're going, you can throw away all those diplomas you have on the wall. Like,
just calling you out.
yeah, she was just like, you don't need any of that. She was just really like fully be yourself. And I was healing and getting ready to like really step out and be my wild and weird, wacky self. I think for years in medicine, I kept thinking, well, I have to be this way for you to accept me, or I need to be like all these guys in medicine. And like, it was such a masculine place. Like everything's like, did you pull the trigger on that diagnosis? Or, just like all these very male, it was very, I want to say competitive, but everybody wanted to be the smartest person in the room. And so, I mean, I won't speak for everybody. I wanted to be the smartest person. Let's be there. Let's just put it out there. And I think just that competitive atmosphere of medical student, like, you're always like, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to get the top thing, and I wanted to get the best recommendation from. So you were always just like, what can I do to make you see how great I am and see how hard I'm working for you and like get the best, and that just never stopped, I think in some ways. And not that that's a bad thing, like people pleasing and wanting to be the best. I think excellence is awesome.
Yes.
But in that, I definitely lost myself. And so, and to be a coach, and which is what eventually I evolved into being in a shamanic healer, it's like I really needed to come out and be authentic. And it was like, whoa, this is scary. Like, dare I show people this ridiculous side of myself? Or, do I talk out loud about the fact that I'm listening to the messages of animals?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, like now I totally do. And sometimes I forget like how wacky I am. And then people are like, you what? And I'm just like, oh, wait, let me back up.
I've been this way for a while now, but let me introduce you to me.
And it makes you accessible.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's fun. And I realized all these people that I met, when all this training, I got to have all these experiences meeting these elders and who are so funny. I mean, they're hilarious, but they're also serious and like so wise. But the best teachers and the best like elders, I feel like they have the best sense of humor. Like they don't take themselves or life too seriously. And that's one thing I have to be reminded again and again, like, lady, relax, because I can get pretty wound up.
Culturally, where we have all grown up, like that is the mantra.
Yeah.
It's like, just strive.
Yeah, totally.
Don't relax, achieve.
Yes.
24/7 hustle culture mentality.
Be the best.
We have to learn that from someone else.
Yeah.
We're just not born with it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it is good. It is good to strive for excellence. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
also good to be a human and just like, remind ourselves that we're just here to like, hopefully show up and serve in some way and use our gifts and
Okay, so go back just a little bit. So you took this sabbatical, you're like going to write a book, and how did that trajectory kind of like take us a little bit more on your journey to like the work that you do now, even because you do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And even now you do. I mean, you're multi-book author. I don't even know correctly how to say that, right?
Yes.
If you're watching, you can see
I've got like 6 books, and a 7th is coming out this spring on boundaries.
Fantastic. Yes.
I love it.
Oh, who doesn't need boundaries?
I started out like I had a dream of, well, obviously serving people at the one-on-one level, but I really wanted to do travel retreats. And so I launched my first,
okay.
it was called Jazz the Glass. And
Oh my gosh, I love the name.
Jazzing the glass is like a surfer term when
okay.
you're like really rocking it and you're riding a wave. And so we went to Kauai and I ran that retreat with a couple other coaches, and it was so amazing. And I really didn't know what I was doing, but like started teaching people how to journey. And I discovered that even though I really was not a full expert, I don't think anybody ever becomes a full expert in anything.
Yep.
People got so much out of it. And so I loved that. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to develop an app because I really want more people to access the beasties and be able to like ask for help. Like you're going into a board meeting, you're stressed out. Like you just need to help. And so you can go into this app.
I love your app.
You can just take a moment. It'll show you what to do. And then you push the button and all of a sudden you got to keep it on silence if you're in your cubicle because it could disturb everybody. But there's all these animal sounds and there's a whole visual happens. And then a message will pop forward from a beastie that's trying to help you. And that has been super fun. So that was something that really interested. Like, let's make it accessible. Let's make it, right there with people. And so I ran retreats. We went to Thailand. We did a pachydermal pilgrimage. I did that a couple of times.
Watching that one on social
that was
media.
amazing.
Yes.
And just walking through the jungle with elephants was so powerful and incredible. And so I've done a lot of that and done some retreats, like quite a few local retreats as well, like in person. And then my mom died about 3 years ago. And after that, I had started making art. But when she died, it kind of gave me permission to really start making art. Like, I don't know. I think my mom was my last people pleaser. Like my one I was really trying to please somehow, even though it wasn't like conscious. But once she was gone, it was like she would want me just to be happy and do whatever the hell I want. And so then I was like, I want to make more art.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've heard the whisper from spirit going, what if you stopped doing everything and just made art? And I'm like, who said that?
What?
What?
Interesting.
I think that might be coming down the pike. But anyway, so art has been a big part of it. And yeah, I've taken some groups on journeys to Peru so that they could work with plant medicine such as ayahuasca.
That would be me. We did that together.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So helpful.
So beautiful.
Yes.
And they're these ancient medicines that are so powerful. And if you feel called or drawn to them, it can be a really amazing process. So I'm a big fan of the plants. And yeah, I'm a big fan of creativity. Like one of the things, like originally when I left, thinking I'm tired of hunting for disease. I want to see what makes people well. And I think what I've landed on after being in this other experience of life is that what makes people well is to express themselves. Oh,
I love that. That's
huge.
Good.
Whether
that's
it's in a beautiful tablescape, like the incredible thing you created the other night, like just amazing like that, or whether it's singing, or whether it's expressing yourself by creating a beautiful blanket for one of your grandchildren, like whatever it is, expressing creative self-expression in whatever form is the medicine. Like to me, that's
the medicine.
And so now I spend a lot of time like encouraging people to do their creative act. So and this summer, and I do it every summer, we do a 100-day project. Last year we did 86 days because I was a little burned out. But everybody's, why 86 days? And I'm like, listen, my dad just died. I'm a little tired. We're going to cut her down about 14 days, all right?
It's close enough.
But every day, like you do for 15 to 20 minutes, you do some creative acts. So some people sang on there, and recorded it on like a ukulele. Some people painted watercolors. I mean, everybody did different nature mandalas, you name it, people did it. And I've done it for I think 5 summers in a row, and it's just incredible. And I've watched people launch art careers out of that. I've watched people launch businesses, several in Duluth.
So good.
It's quite incredible. And if you just commit to doing something every day, not that much time, you'll be amazed what you learn about yourself. And you'll create a body of work, some of which you will hate, some of which you'll be like, holy crap, I can't believe I made that. That's kind of cool,
And see your own progress over that time, which is a big commitment, yet a very small slice of time in the grand scheme of things.
Yes.
And it'll show you if that's what you're meant to continue doing.
Absolutely. And you build your like integrity with yourself. So a lot of us have lost faith in ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's something about doing the same thing every day for 100 days. Even if you only make it 60 days, you'll have proven to yourself like you did what you said you were going to do. And there's something about that that's very restorative.
Agreed. Yes.
Oh, I love that.
And
So-
by the way, she
Yeah.
has a beautiful voice and taught herself the ukulele. So unless you go to like
Sing and play
a
the
ceremony,
ukulele. Oh my
yeah, you don't get to
gosh.
experience it. But
And I love your
yes.
fashion like series that
Oh,
you do.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That
that's
was
always fun too.
Authentic
fun.
fashion.
Authentic
Oh.
Fashion February. We did
Oh,
that
yeah.
in the pandemic. It was
So
so
good.
fun. And that was the same sort of thing. Like every day, just get dressed and take a selfie. Just wear something that you feel good in. And because I think in the pandemic, we all had a lot of extra time.
Yes.
It was so fantastic. Like the outfits people came up with. Even me, I look back, I'm like, I can't even believe I thought of that outfit. Because now I'm back to like full steam, like
Yes.
packed schedule in a good
Yeah.
way. But like, I don't have that extra 45 minutes that I think I had in the pandemic.
Yeah.
But that was
It
delightful.
was creative and inspiring, and
It was
just-
fun.
and fun to watch. So that was
Thank
just the
you.
different ways you use your creativity, and the fact that you said now like that expressing yourself through that is the way you heal, whatever that happens to be.
It could be just in your personal style. And I
Yeah.
think, and there's a huge connection we learned in that process altogether that when you feel good, you become a better person. Like when you
100%.
feel
So true.
fantastic in your outfit, which I
Yes.
think we all do today.
Yeah.
Yes, we
It's
do.
like I watched myself. I would go to the grocery store, like kind of looking grunged out, like, maybe
Yep.
needed a shower, maybe needed a lot of things. And I remember running to an old friend and kind of like, oh God, like turning the other way. Like I didn't want to see her.
Yes.
Then 2 weeks later, another grocery store, another friend I hadn't seen in a long time, but I was looking like $1,000,000 according to myself, like in this cool outfit
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
picked. And I saw her and I was like, I literally ran up to her smiling. And I thought, wow, like
Yeah.
that is a huge difference. So if you're feeling lazy about your outfit, it will actually turn you into a better person if you take 5 minutes to like set your clothes out the night before or however it works best for you.
Yes.
The effort in.
Yes.
But it's that dopamine kick. It's something about that all just helps you. And
yes.
Well, you feel into the person you want to be by first being that through how you
Yes.
present,
yes.
and it has just a I don't know, like
Ripple
a
effect?
snowball effect.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
like dress for
for
the
sure.
job you want.
Yes,
It's like dress
yes.
to be the person you want to be,
Yeah.
I want to ask you about your boundaries book that's coming out soon. Like
Oh,
how
yes.
kind
Oh
of that
my
came
gosh,
about
yes.
and all of, like a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was a 100-day project. And how that started is I was cleaning my office and I stumbled into, it was like March, and I stumbled into this note I had written and taped to my desk that said like these 3 boundaries that I was going to put up with my office work and my clients.
Okay.
And when I read the note, I realized I had broken every single boundary myself.
Yeah, right. Like,
This wasn't
Yes.
anybody. Like boundaries really aren't about other people.
No,
They're
they're
about
really about
you,
yourself.
You
Yes,
know? And I
yes.
was like, crap. So I was like, for my 100-day project, I decided I was going to do it all about boundaries. So every day I read something about boundaries, and then I created an like a digital kind of collaged illustration on my iPad. And I'm telling you, I would get messages every day. They're like, thank you so much for doing this. I just put up a boundary. Or people would just text me, I just put
Yes.
up a boundary. I can't believe it. I'm having courage. Like, you're reminding me how important this is. And it was just really powerful. And it was super, like, it changed my life literally. Like, I ended up putting a boundary with my partner. We ended up like our marriage kind of imploded like a year after that, really ignited by that. I mean, imploded temporarily.
Yes.
And then it was kind of like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, and then we put everything back together again. And now
Yes.
things are way better than ever.
Oh,
But it
I
really
love that.
started with those boundaries of
Yeah.
like, like I gotta take care of myself, and I gotta not that he wasn't like it was again my own boundaries,
Yep.
Yes.
and there's so many facets to boundaries that I didn't know about, and now I'm like 3 years later. Now I'm just like when somebody calls me to do something that I don't want to do, I'm just like, that doesn't work for me. Literally trips off my tongue, and I'm thinking 3 years ago I'd be like, what? Who would say such a thing? You
Right.
sound
How dare
horrible, you know?
you?
Like,
Right.
I think as women we're so trained to be so nice, but nice does not help you set boundaries necessarily. You got to be clear, and you actually have to be repetitive about it, because people will continue to keep trying to trounce your boundaries even though you've told them multiple times,
100%.
here's my boundary. And don't be surprised when they just come running over the fence again, and you're like,
Oh.
Gotta hold the boundary. So you decided to
Yeah.
write a book based on
So what I did is I took some of the best illustrations from
Yes.
those 100 days, and then I just expanded upon it, and then added some questions to help people like self-reflect. So it's similar to
so
the
excited.
100, the how good are you willing to let it get, but it's called
I can't wait.
Boundaries Make Love Possible.
Oh,
Because if we ain't got boundaries, we're
beautiful.
kind of resentful and grumpy.
Yes, we
grumpy
are.
Grinches. And
Yes.
so-
Yes, without the boundaries, we
Yeah.
have nothing but dread.
Well, we just get angry and
Yes.
resentful, like you were saying, because like
Yep.
you didn't do the thing, but oh wait, it's really because I don't even have the boundary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
creates
Exactly.
space. It creates space
Yes.
for love to grow.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
That is so exciting. I remember watching that project with the little illustrations, and I didn't put together until just now that was where the new book came
Yep.
from. But your combination of the words with the art, I can't wait to see it in print.
I think it's going to be fun.
I can't wait
So
either.
this is in April.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm an ADHD person, so I got diagnosed. That was another thing that happened to me when I took my sabbatical. I got
Okay.
diagnosed with
Oh.
ADHD as a 42-year-old woman. And I remember being like, oh, now I understand so many
much
things. Yeah. So I don't even remember why I was saying that. That's so me.
There it is.
But I guess
that's the book.
there
Maybe
you
it came
go.
from your
It's just such a, yeah. So anyways.
This is why I love you so much.
We'll be so excited to read this book. If you ever do retreats again, like come
Yeah.
in because
Oh,
yes,
A retreat of 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna start tagging along on these trips that you, Monique, go on because I think that'd be
Yeah, they are
amazing,
pretty
but
amazing. We have
it
so
is
much fun.
The
Yes, we
most
do.
honor of this whole journey to have
I
you
know.
here,
Thank
sharing
you.
this and the ability to share this with the people that we connect with, and
Mhm. Bring
these
you to-
practices are a
yes,
big part
yes.
of what we use and working with people. So
And
it's
I
just
love
so
what you guys
cool.
are up to. I just think
Aw.
having your wisdom shared and your friendship and your understanding of relationship is just going to help so many entrepreneurs and people out there.
Thank you for saying
That's
that.
the goal.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
means a lot. to
Yeah.
hear
Yeah,
that.
really. Yeah, because we naturally have something that we think everyone should have.
Yep.
And then we're like,
But we
oh,
don't
we
all
don't
have
all
it.
have that.
No.
Right?
Yeah. but
Yes.
You
Need
should
to
seek
learn.
it. And
Mhm.
sometimes
Yes.
you see it walk in your life and it could walk right out if you don't nurture it
Mhm.
Mhm.
seek
Yes.
it.
Yes.
and cultivate it. It doesn't just bloom.
Yeah.
So,
So true.
oh, well, on that again, thanks for being here with us
Yes.
today.
Thank
Yeah.
Hope
you so
everybody's
much.
enjoyed this as much as we have just being here.
Mhm.
It's been a delight.
We will link hopefully everything in the show
Yeah,
notes, like your
absolutely.
books, your art, your website. I mean, you have all of the things that you do are so many, but it's fantastic. So yes.
Yes, if this is the only episode you listen to, just go straight into all of Sarah's things and you're welcome.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers, friends. You've just finished another episode of the Heart and Soul podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed the show, and if you've loved it, we would love if you'd leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening. You can find links to leave that review in the show notes, where you'll also find other resources that we reference on our show. And if you think a friend could find value in today's episode or any future episodes, please share this episode with them on social media. This is one of the only ways the podcast can organically grow, and we just can't wait to connect with you and all of your besties. You can also find Monique and I on our many social media platforms or our websites, and we're going to leave links to those in the show notes as well. Thank you for listening. We look forward to sharing our hearts and souls with you again next time. With Heart, I'm Mariah.
And with Soul, I'm Monique.